be so many different facets of your own personality that you can get to, and you find yourself repeating yourself.
He was, for all intents and purposes, the definitive American movie star. For 50 years, Paul Newman wasn't just an actor. He was an icon of masculinity, a famously devoted husband, a philanthropist whose work touched millions, and, of course, the owner of the most legendary blue eyes in film history. His half-century marriage to Joanne Woodward became the gold standard in Hollywood, a town where relationships famously go to die. After all, he was the man who quipped, "Why go out for a hamburger when you have steak at home?" That one line seemed to cement his image as the loyal straight-arrow family man. But what if that wasn't the whole story? Behind the charm, the legend, and those famous eyes, whispers have always swirled. For decades, rumors have shadowed Newman's legacy, stories of a hidden life, of desires that flew in the face of his public persona, and of passionate, secret relationships that the iron-fisted Hollywood studio system was allegedly determined to keep buried. And these aren't just whispers. They're explosive claims, detailed in controversial biographies that paint a picture of a life lived in the shadows. A life that, if it were true, would completely rewrite Hollywood history. For 50 years, he was the ultimate man's man, a devoted husband, and a true Hollywood legend. But was the Paul Newman we knew only part of the story? Decades after his death, a shocking and controversial narrative emerged, claiming that at 83, frail from his battle with cancer, Newman finally broke his silence, supposedly detailing secret love affairs with some of old Hollywood's most famous male stars. So, did this really happen? Tonight, we're investigating the explosive rumors about the men Paul Newman was alleged to have secretly dated, including a passionate, fraught romance with the ultimate rebel, James Dean. This isn't just gossip. It's a hidden history Hollywood never wanted you to hear, a history built almost entirely on unverified claims and sensational books that have been both dismissed as fiction and embraced as fact. We're going to lay out the allegations and the evidence, and let you decide. To really grasp how explosive these claims are, you have to understand the world Paul Newman came up in. The Hollywood of the 1950s was nothing like it is today. It was a kingdom ruled by all-powerful studios, and their business was manufacturing gods and goddesses. They built stars from scratch, controlling their names, their histories, and most importantly, their public images. At the core of this control were the infamous morality clauses tucked into every actor's contract. These gave studios the power to torpedo a career over any behavior they considered morally questionable. And in mid-century America, nothing was more scandalous than being gay. The fear was real. Rock Hudson, one of the biggest stars on the planet, lived in constant terror of being outed, a fear that was only realized after his death. This oppressive atmosphere created what historians now call the lavender closet. It was a powerful, unwritten code of silence. Gay, lesbian, and bisexual actors were forced into leading double lives. In public, they were paired with studio-approved opposite-sex escorts for premieres. Many were even pushed into sham unions, known as lavender marriages, all to project a perfect image of heterosexual bliss. But behind closed doors, a secret and vibrant world existed, one full of coded language, clandestine meetings, and relationships that could cost them everything. Actors like Montgomery Clift, Sal Mineo, and Anthony Perkins, names you'll hear again soon, all struggled with this reality. They were matinee idols, adored by millions of women, but their authentic selves were a liability the studios would never tolerate. That was the brutal paradox of the Golden Age, a time of incredible glamour and art, all built on a foundation of deep personal sacrifice and fear. Any step off the studio-approved life script was career suicide, and it's in that pressure cooker of secrets and lies that the rumors about Paul Newman, the ultimate icon of masculinity, really take hold. The first and most legendary name tied to Paul Newman in these rumors is none other than James Dean. Dean was a supernova who burned impossibly bright and tragically fast. Newman and Dean were contemporaries, rivals, and, according to some highly controversial accounts, a whole lot more. They both trained at the prestigious Actors Studio in New York, a place that championed raw, emotional honesty. When they both landed in Hollywood, their paths crossed again for a 1954 screen test for East of Eden. The surviving footage from that day is absolutely electric. It's more than just two actors reading lines. You can feel a palpable, undeniable chemistry between them. People who were there noted how Newman seemed captivated, his gaze often fixed on Dean, who had this magnetic, couldn't-care-less charm. It's during this screen test that the most debated anecdote about their relationship allegedly took place. The story goes that in the middle of a scene, James Dean, famous for his wild improvisations, turned to Newman and simply said, "Kiss me." Newman's response is muffled on the recording, and this is where the debate begins. Some hear him say, "Can't hear, just asking for the line again." But others are convinced he nervously laughed and said, "Can't hear," implying he might be willing, just not with studio executives watching his every move. That single moment captures the mystery of their connection. What happened next is a matter of fierce debate, fueled almost entirely by posthumous biographies, especially the highly controversial work of author Darwin Porter. In his book, Paul Newman, The Man Behind the Baby Blues, Porter makes the bombshell claim that Newman and Dean were lovers. Porter, who says he started tracking Newman's private life in 1959, alleges their affair was intensely physical. It is critical to state that these claims are not supported by any mainstream historical accounts, and have been fiercely denied by Newman's family and estate, who called them disgusting. Most historians classify these stories as sensationalized gossip that's impossible to verify. Newman himself was intensely private and, by all credible accounts, was deeply uncomfortable with any public suggestions about his sexuality. Still, the rumors are often contextualized by James Dean's own well-documented bisexuality. Dean didn't play by the rules. The story goes that he was the pursuer, wanting a real relationship, while Newman, always thinking about his career and image, was more hesitant. Adding more fuel to the fire are alleged quotes from other Hollywood giants. In his book, Porter quotes Marlon Brando as supposedly saying, "He never fooled me. Paul Newman had just as many on-location affairs as the rest of us, and he was just as bisexual as I was. But, where I was always getting caught with my pants down, he managed to do it in the dark." Like the affair itself, this quote has never been verified by any primary source and only appears in these sensational books. So, what's the truth? Was it a friendship amplified by the intensity of a screen test? Or was it a secret affair, buried by the homophobia of the era? The official record is silent, but the story of Newman and Dean persists. A tantalizing what-if that speaks to the chemistry between two of Hollywood's greatest icons. If the rumors about James Dean are about fiery passion, the alleged connection between Paul Newman and Anthony Perkins is a different kind of story altogether. Perkins was the handsome, anxious star, best known for his bone-chilling role as Norman Bates in Psycho. His on-screen persona was often that of a gentle, sensitive, and troubled young man which, tragically, wasn't far from his own private struggles. The story of their meeting, again sourced almost exclusively from controversial biographers and second-hand accounts, supposedly took place in 1954 at the Chateau Marmont. Newman, then 29, was in town for his first movie, The Silver Chalice. According to an account attributed to Maila Nurmi, a friend of Perkins, the two actors met by the hotel pool. Perkins approached Newman, and, the story claims, they were in bed together within minutes. What followed, according to these unverified reports, was a passionate affair that lasted for weeks. It was described not as a deep romance, but as a physical connection between two young men exploring their sexuality. In a town that forbid it, Perkins was known to be a deeply conflicted gay man who, by many accounts, wished he could be straight. Newman, in these stories, is painted as more experimental, like a kid in a candy store. This was a time when, according to Hollywood lore, many of the industry's most handsome young actors were secretly involved with each other. But Newman was different in one crucial way. He was already married with 3 kids from his first wife, Jackie Vita, which would have added another layer of extreme risk to any alleged affairs. The story gets even more shocking. These controversial sources claim the affair didn't just end there, but was an on-again, off-again thing that continued for years. Even after Newman married Joanne Woodward in 1958, this is probably the most stunning claim that Newman's legendary marriage might have coexisted with a long-term secret affair with another man. Of course, like the other claims, the story of an affair with Anthony Perkins is not supported by any credible, mainstream evidence. It lives in the world of Hollywood, rumor and tell-all books. There is no public record of Newman ever confirming anything of the sort, but the narrative persists because it fits a known pattern of the era: the tortured closeted star, the secret affair, and the double life lived. In the shadow of the Hollywood sign, it paints a picture of a man far more complex than his public image ever let on. Paul Newman, aggressive pursuer, and Newman as the one who was strangely attracted to McQueen's brashness. Despite their constant friction, it is crucial to state, once again, that these stories are entirely uncorroborated. Mainstream accounts of the Newman-McQueen relationship focus solely on their professional competition. Friends who knew both men described their dynamic as difficult and fueled by ego, but never mentioned a sexual component. In a later interview, Newman himself reflected on their rivalry with a sense of regret, wishing they could have been better friends, but never hinted at anything more. So, was their legendary feud just that, a battle between two movie star egos? Or was it a cover for something far more complex? Like so many stories from Hollywood's lavender closet, the truth is likely buried under decades of speculation, rumor, and the larger-than-life personas of the men themselves. Beyond the big names of Dean, Perkins, and McQueen, a whole constellation of other stars has been linked to Paul Newman in these same controversial accounts. These stories suggest a wide, interconnected circle of closeted or sexually fluid actors in the 50s and 60s, a group that allegedly included Marlon Brando, Montgomery Clift, and Sal Mineo. Marlon Brando is a key figure here. That unverified quote, attributed to him by Darwin Porter, claiming Newman was just as bisexual as I was, is often used as evidence by those who believe the rumors. Brando himself later spoke openly about his own same-sex experiences, which lends the rumor a veneer of plausibility. Montgomery Clift, another of the era's great method actors, is also woven into this tapestry of secrets. Clift was a tragic, closeted gay man whose life was shattered by a horrific car accident. The rumors suggest that early in their careers, he and Newman had an intense and complicated connection. Then there's Sal Mineo, best known for his role in Rebel Without a Cause. Mineo was one of the few actors of the era who was relatively open about his bisexuality later in life. According to the gossip biographies, he and Newman had a sexual relationship, and Mineo fell deeply in love, a love the married Newman was unwilling to return. It's important to approach these particular claims with even more skepticism. While the rumors about Dean and Perkins are often presented with specific, albeit unverified, anecdotes, the alleged connections to Brando, Clift, and Mineo are typically more vague, based on second-hand accounts and the general idea that all these handsome actors must have been part of the same secret club. Whether Paul Newman was a central figure in this hidden world, as the sensational biographies claim, remains a fiercely debated question, with no credible proof. But the fact that this rumor mill even exists speaks volumes about the culture of the time. The lavender closet was real, the pressure was real, and the need for secrecy was very, very real. Amidst this hurricane of rumors, there's one voice that matters most. Paul Newman's throughout his life, Newman was intensely private. He rarely, if ever, addressed the whispers about his sexuality. But in his later years, he participated in a massive oral history project, recording brutally honest conversations with his friend, screenwriter Stuart Stern. Those tapes were thought to be lost, but they were eventually rediscovered and published in a posthumous memoir called The Extraordinary Life of an Ordinary Man. It was Newman's chance to, in his own words, poke holes in the mythology. And while the book is filled with raw, unflinching confessions, it does not contain the revelations the gossip books predicted. There is no confirmation of affairs with James Dean, Steve McQueen, or any other man. So what does he confess to? He admits to crippling insecurity, to feeling like an imposter his entire life. He talks about his difficult childhood and his struggles with alcoholism. And, most importantly, he personally dismantles the myth of his own perfect marriage. Newman admits, in his own words, to being a creature of lust. He confesses to numerous affairs with women during his first marriage, describing his behavior as brutal, but he credits Joanne Woodward with awakening him sexually. In one of the book's most stunning passages, he says, "Joanne gave birth to a sexual creature. We left a trail of lust all over the place, hotels and public parks and Hertz rent-a-cars." These confessions are shocking on their own. They reveal a man far more flawed and carnal than his public image. He wasn't the man who always stayed home for steak. But all the lust he confesses to, all the affairs he admits, are with women. For Newman's family and his estate, this is the final word. But for those who believe the rumors, the lack of a confession isn't proof. They argue that for a man of his generation, that might have been the one secret too great to reveal, even after death. But his memoir undeniably shows is that Paul Newman was a man who knew how to keep secrets. The book doesn't confirm the rumors of affairs with men, but by revealing the depth of his other secrets, it proves that the man in the mirror was infinitely more complicated than the one on the movie screen. The history of old Hollywood is full of stories that were silenced and lives that were lived in the shadows. The claims about Paul Newman are some of the most explosive of all. What do you think this story tells us about the pressure cooker environment of the Golden Age? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you find these hidden histories fascinating, please like this video and subscribe for more stories that Hollywood tried to bury. In the end, we're left with two Paul Newman. The first is the man of record, the legendary actor, the devoted husband of 50 years, the loving father, the generous philanthropist, a man who, by his own admission, battled demons like infidelity and alcohol, but found redemption in his epic love story with Joanne Woodward. This is the official story. The second narrative is a ghost story. It's a tale built from unproven claims and controversial books, whispered in the margins of the official record. This story tells of a man torn between his public image and his private desires, a bisexual icon who navigated the treacherous, homophobic waters of old Hollywood with more secrecy than his peers. Without definitive proof, a diary, a letter, a verified recording, the claims of Newman's affairs with men remain just that, claims. They are part of the mythology of Hollywood, where the line between fact and fiction often blurs. For decades, these stories have been dismissed by mainstream biographers and Newman's family as baseless smears from unreliable sources. And yet, they refuse to disappear. They persist because they speak to a larger truth about the era. The Lavender Closet was a real and painful place for countless artists. Whether the rumors about Paul Newman are true or not, their power lies in the world they reveal. A world where such a life, if it existed, had to be a secret. They challenge us to look past the perfect, studio-made images and see the complex, flawed, and human figures behind the legends. Paul Newman was an extraordinary man, and the full truth of his extraordinary life may be a secret he took with him to the grave.